guess I'll do something while I'm waiting for... Because the reason why I'm waiting is because there's a live stream thing. When it converts to a video, it kind of cuts out the beginning, so... Just gonna go do something, I guess. So this is not, because I'm playing Bloodborne, again. So, I guess I can get started. Okay, we're on air again. Alright then. So I guess we can get started because, well, I feel like I need to get this off my chest, and I'm tired of reading articles that are... The reason I said bad in the title is because I didn't want to get too much into detail about it. So... Oh boy, I just read an article that clearly the person had never played all the Souls games, and made an article based on ranking them. And Dark Souls 2 was last place. Not Scholar of the First Sin, just Dark Souls 2 in general. Which I would see as okay, because that's how the rest of the community sees it, but putting Dark Souls 1 above Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, and Demon Souls is going too far. Like, Demon Souls I could see maybe because you never played Demon Souls and you just assume Dark Souls 1 is better because Demon Souls is older. That I could see. But not because Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro are worse. Come on. So... As I mentioned, I was reading his reasons for ranking them, and that's why I come to the conclusion that he's never played Dark Souls 2, and he's just going off of what the community is ranking it as, because the community has a joke that Dark Souls 2 is the worst one. It's this known joke between everyone. And if you don't know it to be a joke, then nobody explained the joke to you. The reason it's a joke is because there are so many people defending Dark Souls 1 back in the day, back when Dark Souls 2 came out, and basically all they could think of is, oh my god, Dark Souls 1 is so much better than this, so much better than this, so much better than this, because they didn't go back and revisit Dark Souls 1, so they were just saying Dark Souls 2 is the worst one out of the two. And so, like, oh yeah, Dark Souls 2 is the worst one? Sure. Yeah, we'll go with that. But instead of, doing it sarcastically, we just said, yeah, Dark Souls 2 is the worst. Because it's a meme. But that's where that comes from. If you don't know that, then you have no business putting Dark Souls 2 last on a ranking video. If you take that seriously, you have no business ranking a Souls chart at all. So what I'm gonna do here, now you'll have no visual indications because I'm live streaming this, not editing it and putting it into little things, and I probably should, but I'm still getting familiar with Share Factory. So that's why I deleted my Bloodborne one, because A, that's a rough draft, that's not even the final product at all. Because I'm still reworking the script and whatnot, and doing all kinds of tweaks to the script, and I want to find, like, yes, I got some good footage, but it wasn't good enough footage for what I needed. And plus, I wasn't chopping it up properly. So I'm going to start with the ranking here, because I'm tired of seeing people do this incorrectly. And the reason I say incorrectly is because... Where are you putting that? The dice, give it. You can just go on my side of the table. It's okay. Just ask before you start putting stuff somewhere. Alright, so, yeah. Where's the red one's right there, okay. We need to wash that or something. Anyway, so I'm gonna start last place to first place, obviously, for the most dramatic. So last place, I would put Dark Souls 1. Now, the reasoning for that, I already sensed the comments being, pausing this video and writing their whole essay down there. But my reasoning for this is valid, I assure you. My experience playing Dark Souls 1, this is after all the others, including Dark Souls 2, and Demon Souls, and Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, Elden Ring, even some knockoff ones like Neo, Lives of P. I mean, this is after all that. My experience with Dark Souls 1 is the worst. And I even played Code Vein. I played Code Vein and Dark Souls 1. I mean, okay, I'm not putting Code Vein above Dark Souls 1, but Dark Souls 1 is a better game compared to Code Vein. But the reason I'm saying, the reason I'm bringing Code Vein into this is because I've played a bad From Software game, and I see where they fail at. Dark Souls 1 falls in that category of bad Souls games for me. And for it being part of the main series and being so like yes, the lore is awesome. Don't get me wrong, the lore is awesome, but for a game, the lore does not carry it for me. For movies, yeah, that's great. Keep the lore as great as it can be. But for a game, it's not just about the lore. It's about how the game feels, the level design, the mob design, enemy placement, I mean, everything. Like, everything about Dark Souls 1 felt unfinished. It felt like Code Vein almost. Code Vein is honestly still really bad in my opinion. Like, yes, the character creator is great for an anime game, but you know what? I'm gonna include Code Vein in this listing. Code Vein is last place. Alright, that is dead last. Like, that is, you hit the floor last. Alright? There is nothing worse than Code Vein on this list. Dark Souls 1 is second to last. And the reason I say that is because of my reasoning I've already given. Code Vein is just that bad. I can't even, like, the combat isn't smooth at all. You get 2 attacks and you can't even chain them together. You get the good old 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. Stamina takes forever to start recharging again. Your health, I could go on. I could go on with the failures of Code Vein. It's like Dark Souls 2 merged all its bad shit with Dark Souls 1's bad shit, and it's just making this whole fucking... Yeah, no. Code Vein is the worst. Period. And it is made from software. Dark Souls 1 is second worst. It's not nearly as bad as Code Vein. Please do not ever rank Dark Souls 1 worse than Code Vein. I will find you. But besides that, we'll find you jokes. It's a joke, guys. Calm down. I'm not actually throwing threats out there. But seriously, though, Dark Souls 1 requires some respect. And people will always also have the argument of, oh, it's the first one. No, it's not. Demon Souls is the first one. In terms of the Souls collection, Demon Souls is the first, and funny enough, being the first, it sets the bar for the rest of them. Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2 fall beneath that that line, that bar. They both don't match Demon Souls in feeling like a masterpiece, like fully complete, you know. So next on this list is Scholar of the First Sin's version of Dark Souls 2. I was going to say Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin, but my brain kind of flipped it, and so I just saved it right there. But my reasoning for putting the DLC version beneath the original is because it fucks everything up. Besides landscapes, those stay the same. Thank fucking God it stays the same. enemy placement is all fucked to hell. Good God, is enemy placement fucked to hell. The reason why Dark Souls 2 Scholar the First Sin is so bad in my eyes is enemy placement. It changes the entire game, almost. Because there are still some parts that are the same as the original, but there are very few parts that are. So let's just take, for instance, the very second area. The first area is fine, that was unchanged. Second area, basically the tutorial area. Because the first area has the little rats and the troll and those things. The second area is the DLC after you've created... tutorial, not DLC, Jesus. After you've created your character. So, first one's fine. Second one's fine. Third one, it's fine. But the one where the statue is, where the scholar fucked with everything. A, there's not usually a statue there. B, there's no basilisks in there. C, there's not two trolls. D, it respawns the trolls when you use the coffin, if I remember correctly. So that's a bad one as well. Overall, that is a good example of how much is fucked with the Scholar. It replaced normal hollows. It didn't replace them. It added basilisks in there with them. Added another troll, like, oh, you want to use the gender swap cauldron or coffin? Well, tough shit, because you're gonna fight through all this stuff. Honestly, if you kill them enough times, it's not gonna be that difficult anyway. Just run straight through. Boom, there you go. But yeah, Forest of the Giants, Ironclad being like the Ironclads are the only problem I have with that part of the forest. That and the and the knight throwing the fire bombs instead of the hollow throwing the arrows. I'm not sure why they changed it to a knight throwing fire bombs. Whatever. Glad they got rid of the two guys on the ladder. That's improved. There are some improvements. Again, they're very few and in between. But I'm not gonna break down the whole game for you guys. Pretty much, you fuck with the enemy placement, you fuck with the game. It just doesn't make it better. Next up, I'd say, is... Because I gotta include the DLC as well. Now, I haven't played Dark Souls 1 DLC, don't get me wrong. But I doubt it's that good to boost the game up that bad. Because I made it all the way over to Sif, Quelaag's Domain. Basically, I fought Ceaseless Discharge in 1. Everything I've done in Dark Souls 1, you guys have seen on stream. Everything that I've done off camera is just me grinding. Literally. That's how much you need to grind in Dark Souls 1 to keep up with how strong the enemies are getting. Is grinding. I have never had to grind so much in a Souls game before. It feels like Final Fantasy. Like, it feels like an RPG. It does not feel like an action RPG. But regardless, action-adventure RPG, but whatever. You get the point. Next up, I would say... It's very... very close between the original Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. The reason being is because the gap here widens so much. Like, there's those three at the bottom are so far down there that the next ones on this list are going to be like so much better in terms of quality. I'm going to have to put Dark Souls 2 Original here. Now, the reason why Dark Souls 2 Original is so much better is because enemy placement doesn't feel like someone from Blizzard came in and just placed a bunch of enemies in one small location and said, have fun. You got Ray of Frost. Oh shit, this isn't Diablo. Ah, wow, too late now. I got lightning hands in the water. Oh shit, never mind, you don't have that either. Well, whatever, I'm from Diablo. Like, that's what it feels. That's what Scholar feels like. It feels like somebody just edited the original game, turned it into fucking Diablo. Not a good combo. The original had good enemy placement. It felt like the placing was so nice and paced to where you didn't feel like everything just and its mother just got somebody rang the dinner bell, said, "The cursed one is here. The heir of the curse is in the building. Come get this bitch." Like, no, there's none of that, okay? None of that. Now, I didn't make it to Shrine of Amana in the original, because PS3 just doesn't play as well as my PS4 does now, so I just moved over to Scholar. I didn't finish either version, but I know I'm close. Now, the DLCs in Dark Souls 2 Scholar are still ass. You guys thought I was gonna say better, huh? No, it's still bad. It still feels like somebody Diablo'd it. Like, the one with all the ash people coming out of the fucking ground. There's too many of them. Alright? Like, this isn't Dark Souls 3. This isn't Bloodborne. This isn't Demon Souls. Dark Souls 2 is slow. Stop throwing me 6 enemies. Like, come on, people. I can handle 6 enemies in the other 3. Not in Dark Souls 2. Not in Dark Souls 1. Definitely not in Code Vein. I'm basically ranking these off of gameplay. I could give a shit about the lore, because most of the lore is awesome. But the lore also doesn't make the game feel better to play. I mean, it does when you have stuff like Carol Runes, Blood Gems, like Bloodborne, or weapon arts like Dark Souls 3, or boss weapons, like, that stuff's cool, and it impacts the gameplay. The rest of, like, in the beginning doesn't really affect the gameplay. I mean, you get that, it affects what bosses you fight, sure, but that's it. There's a storyline. That's cool. If that storyline doesn't greatly impact the game, which Souls storylines tend to not do that, except for Demon Souls, and Sekiro, obviously, because Sekiro is Sekiro, and it's very story-based, because it's following more RPG elements, but also following more action elements, so it's like just a more intensified Souls game. Not many people are used to playing a game like that. But off of what I've heard and seen from Sekiro, that's how I'm going to rank it, because I haven't played it yet. I would need $60 to buy it, because, well, duh, I don't have it. Same with the Demon Souls remake. I'm going to be putting that on here, but that's only based off of what I've seen and what I've experienced from the original. But I'm going to try not to put what I've experienced from the original on here, because I know the DLC plays differently off of what I've seen. Or, remake, not DLC. Good God. Like, that's the second time I've put DLC in a place that doesn't belong. But anyway, regardless. After Dark Souls 2 original is Dark Souls 3. And the reasoning for this, and yes, this does include the DLC, Ringed City is an absolute shit DLC. The bosses are awesome. The level design is a bit Diablo for me. There are some really good parts, and then there's just like, oh, let's just cram all these big enemies at you and have fun. Yeah, no. New Game Plus 7 going through that, it was absolute fucking hell. Angels weren't as bad as everyone said they were, though. That Desert Pyromancer and her 2 little thrall buddies, hell. Those 6 ringed knights, if you didn't fucking know how to pull one from afar at a time, absolute fucking hell. The guy summoning the archers, absolute fucking hell. I was even being shot from behind cover. Again, whoever Blizzard rejects into the building needs to fire that guy. Because Elden Ring went straight back to being great with the enemy design, or placement, sorry. Design's good too. Dark Souls 3, I would rank it higher. if it played more like Demon Souls. But unfortunately, the combat is too slow. Hit stun, you're left in hit stun for too long. Like, there's hit stun in Bloodborne, but my brain didn't register that there was because I had played Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2. When I played Bloodborne, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. But, Dark Souls 3. Covenant system, pretty solid. I gotta say, having your Covenant items drop off of enemies is a good way for people to get their Covenant items offline. Because when the servers shut down eventually, which they will when the PS6 comes out, Dark Souls 3 is going to get shut down. Same with Bloodborne, probably. They're going to remaster them probably, so it won't be down for that long, but you'll lose all your data because remasters don't give a shit whether you played the original. Which is why I don't have all my Dark Souls 2 data from my PS3, because you can't do that. But anyway, Dark Souls 3 Covenant system is really good. Dark Souls 2 Covenant system is less inclusive. That's why Dark Souls 3 is ranked higher, because it's pretty good. It's on the level of the original Dark Souls 2. But the thing that makes it better is the budget, the bosses, and the covenants. What does it in, however, which doesn't make it a solid above Dark Souls 2, is the fact that it takes a step back to Dark Souls 1 combat. That irks me. Alright, now I know they couldn't quite get Dark Souls 2's combat in there, but the reason why DLC weapons shine so goddamn much in Dark Souls 3 is because the original weapons, most of their movesets, are straight out of Dark Souls 1. And that's bad. You don't want to take a step backwards after you just had a better game. They could have even taken Demon Souls movesets. They did not. They just took Dark Souls 1. Now, combining the 3 would have been fine. They didn't do that. Because, I don't know, they just felt like they were rushed for time? I don't know. But, like, the level design in Dark Souls 3 is definitely better than Dark Souls 2. But there are places like Faerun Keep, for instance, that feel a bit mazy because everything looks the same. And then you got, oh boy, the Deacon's area, the Cathedral, the Deep. That place, absolute fucking horde. Shit show. Horde shit show. There we go. I cannot stand going through that area when I'm underleveled. It's not the maggot men. It's the fucking grave diggers. Those guys and their fucking 2 swords. And there's 2 of them, by the way. Have fun after you just got done getting your ass handed to you by a bunch of thralls and big guys. It's literally just a fucking clusterfuck of enemies that just want to end your shit. Not fun. Not fun. Ringed City, same deal there, but at least there's some breaks in between. At least there's some breaks in between. Now, in the Cathedral, you do have that break where you fight Kirk. That's a nice break. Don't get parried. Yeah, but I usually don't have a problem with that in Dark Souls 3, because I'm either using a weapon too big, a bow, spells, or I just backstab his ass to death. Or parry him to death. Because that's how boring Dark Souls 3 is for me. I don't feel the need to use bows or sorceries, because I don't feel at risk of getting parried all the time. Dark Souls 2 enemy intelligence, a little higher than Dark Souls 3's, I gotta say. But, again, that's why they're so close, is because where one fails, the other succeeds, you know? Like, Dark Souls 3's areas are nice, but Dark Souls 2 enemy placement is better. Dark Souls 3's movement is better. Dark Souls 2 weapon movesets are better. Dark Souls 3's weapon arts are really good. Dark Souls 2 ability to upgrade your armor is better. Like, I could go on, like, okay, Dark Souls 2 bonfire aesthetics, better. You can revive the boss. Dark Souls 3 New Game Plus, worse. You thought I was going to say better, didn't you? Dark Souls 2 New Game Plus, really good, because it does something different every time. Dark Souls 3 being able to, yeah, no. Ashen Estus, that's where I was going. Ashen Estus is good, but I'll take my herbs over the Estus any day. The herbs like, I'll take spell uses over FP any day, because if there's an item in the game that can replenish your spell uses, that's often better, because then you can use your higher tier spells without running out of magic because you used the lower spells too much. That's why I like spell usage. It balances it out a bit more. FP, however, is impacted by every little spell, every weapon art, everything. Anything that takes FP, you cannot cast your big spells with. And if you cast your big spells, that also keeps you from using as many weapon arts, keeps you from using as many spells. It's bad overall. Dark Souls 2, you can use every spell you possibly can. You can still use the weapon arts. I don't like how it's tied to durability, but... Well, actually, I do like how it's tied to durability, but I don't like how much it takes. And then, like... Dark Souls 3 weapon arts are better than Dark Souls 2 weapon arts, because it's L2 and then probably like a follow-up. Dark Souls 2 is just hold down R2. Like, it got rid of the heavy attack so that you would have dual wield capabilities, which I do like, being able to use a shield in my other hand. You know, shield in your main hand, you can still block with it. That's great. Two-handing your shield, you can still attack with it and block. Like, again, I could go on 4 hours, the pros and cons of these two games between each other. But, like, at the end of the day, Dark Souls 3 is better than Dark Souls 2 overall, because it did more right in the right categories, not more right in general. I wish you could upgrade your armor. I wish that you didn't have to split your Ashen Estus and your normal Estus, and then just have it both halved and go off. Like, the fuck's up with that? But I do like having a faster Estus flask, and, yeah, that's about it. The healing's faster in Dark Souls 3, the healing's slower in Dark Souls 2. Plus, life gems are... Now, if life gems were in Dark Souls 3, it would be fine, because, again, healing's faster in Dark Souls 3. But here's where I'd say Souls was its best. Demon's Souls. Now, it's still its best, because you have Elden Ring, and Bloodborne, Armored Core 6, I haven't played, but it looks great. Just the DLC coming out for Elden Ring, a possible Bloodborne 2 being announced. Dark Souls 3 DLC was pretty decent, not gonna lie. I loved Midir. I loved the Ashes of Arendelle area. Not loved it, but there were some good spots in it. But I mean, other than that, it was kind of just like, what should we do for the DLC? Just do this. It felt lazy, but it's a small area. What are you gonna do? Bloodborne's DLC is the example of a fantastic DLC. And it's only one DLC. Dark Souls 3 has 2, and it's, in my opinion, worse than Bloodborne. But we've got Demon's Souls up next. And while there are worse things about it than Dark Souls 3, there are far more better things about it than Dark Souls 3. Now, I miss my weapon arts, don't get me wrong, but I'd rather have my character be properly paced to the enemies than the enemies being able to mow my ass down before I can swing my goddamn weapon. So, nervous laughter aside, the reason Demon's Souls is above Dark Souls 3 isn't nostalgia. I'm putting that out there right now. Because I know there's going to be comments down there being like, oh, it's just nostalgia. Well, yes, I did get my first taste of Demon's Souls back in 2009 when it first came out on my dad's PlayStation 3. I also got my taste of Bloodborne when I first got my PS4. Did I favor Demon Souls over Bloodborne? No. Is there shit that I love on Demon Souls that I wish were in Bloodborne? Fuck yes. But the reason why Demon Souls is where it is pretty straightforward to me. The Nexus is a great hub world. Little tall, a lot of empty space up in that second floor, but the NPCs are done so much better. The level design is a lot better. Now, one area that comes to mind, Stonefang Tunnel. There's one area in that place where the lava does a little too much damage. But other than that, Demon Souls, I would say, has better level design than Dark Souls 3. Yeah, extinguish your torches, put your pickaxes back. I don't give a flying fuck what you Dark Souls 1 fans have to say. It is the worst Dark Souls game ever. Now, it teeters with Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin, because Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin is the worst version of Dark Souls 2. But, again, eat my shorts. Anyway, Demon Souls. Now, the worst area in this game is a war between Valley of Defilement and Tower of Latria. The reason I say that is Tower of Latria has too many pitfalls. Not in the first section, but in the later sections. It's very easy to fall off because it's a PS3 game and you got a lot of thin ledges. Dark Souls 1 had this same problem, so don't you dare try and bring up that Dark Souls 1 didn't. Even games like Bloodborne have that problem still, but at least it's a gen higher, so it's easier to deal with, but I've got too much hair in my controller, so it's a bit harder to deal with. Didn't have that problem with the PS3 controller, so yeah. Please fix your joysticks, PlayStation. But with that aside, yeah, World Tenancy, boy do we need that. We need to punish people who kill NPCs, and we need to reward people for doing actual justice. Killing invaders, killing bosses, just helping hosts out, you revive. That's been a thing in the Souls series for a while. Not sure if it's in Dark Souls 1. I think it is, though. Mainly because I haven't played with anyone in Dark Souls 1, because the one guy who said he would play with me didn't. And then, yeah. Just, I feel like Demon Souls is a better game. Now, bosses-wise, I would say it's a 50-50. There are some bosses in Demon Souls that aren't that great. There's a lot of them that are really good. Now, people seem to look over the Dragon God whenever talking about a good boss fight, but that's because they were going for more stealth than actually fighting the fucker. Which is an odd turn for a Souls game. Not many Souls games do the stealth boss, but there's two stealth bosses in Demon Souls that I can think of. Old Hero and Dragon God. So, the reason I say Old Hero is because Thief Ring. And he's blind, so if you mask your footsteps, he can't really track you that well. So it could be counted as a stealth boss if you decide to play it that way. Storm King is our first gimmick fight ever, and in my opinion, it's the most epic because it can fight back. And it doesn't force your character to sit there for a good 5 seconds. 5 to 10 seconds. I did that in reverse order on accident. To sit there and charge the weapon like Dark Souls 3. Demon Souls, you just swing the fucking thing. And it takes down Sky Rays. Sorry, I almost called them Sea Rays. Do I wish it went a little farther? Yes, but it does the job. Now, Elden Ring's gimmick fight has to be the best one because every attack is different. your jump attacks, jump heavies, normal attacks, heavies, weapon art, jumping heavies. I mean, even the backstep and the rolling are different. Like, they really went above and beyond with that fight because of the weapon just getting absolutely overhauled. And not to mention, the boss is an absolute spectacle to fight. But we'll get there later. In Demon Souls, I feel like Phalanx is a good first boss. Not too difficult, not too easy for the new players. Because the new players got to figure out what enemy weaknesses are. And they also have to figure out how to work their way around a shield. And no other game does that in their beginning. They just throw a guy with a great shield at you and expect you to learn how to circle around him until he does something stupid. Or fucking knock his shield down with bashes or two-handing the weapon like in Demon Souls, because I don't remember. Well, no, there were bash attacks in Demon Souls, never mind. But it was better just to two-hand your straight sword and just go ham, because they couldn't do anything if you were hitting their great shield. Now, Shrine of Storms does have a couple pitfalls, because it's a little too thin on ledges where there are enemies, but I'll let that slide, because first game in the series, hello. Wish Dark Souls 1 knew what Demon Souls did wrong, then I would have called it better, because then it would have done better, but it didn't do better, because it didn't acknowledge the mistakes Demon Souls made. It made them worse. Just a moment. Alright, I'm back. So yeah, Tower Knight is a really good second boss. That bridge on the way up there is awesome. It shows you to look for another route to get past the threat, take down the threat, and then move on. Instead of just, oh yeah, go ahead and power through, like that one dragon in Dark Souls 1. Either go through the rats, which can poison you until you're dead and you can't even open the gate from that side, or kill the dragon and move past. Like, yes, it's look for another path, but it's not nearly as cool. It's like forcing you to look for another path. Because like with Demon Souls, you could time it. Dark Souls 1, the dragon just waits to see you and then it just instantly. No startup, no nothing, just pulls head back, launches fire at you. And then Penetrator, need I say more? It's a really good boss, but very easily dodged. But again, first game, sorry. It is an excellent boss fight, an excellent theme. I'm still kind of meh about them changing his magic from magic to blood, but whatever. I guess we needed a Bloodborne reference somewhere in the remake. But I digress. Next up, because I've talked too much about Demon Souls, honestly, I could go on for hours about Demon Souls. Next up is... Oh, I didn't talk about Sekiro. From what I've seen of it, it should be better than Demon Souls. It should be a lot better than Dark Souls 3, but again, I haven't played it. So I'm gonna put Sekiro here, in this third spot. Because I'm not gonna include Armored Core, because it's not a Souls game. But also, I haven't played it either. I haven't seen much of it, because I don't want to spoil it either. Yeah, but from what I've seen, Sekiro would go above Demon Souls. And it's a game I haven't played yet. And me putting that above the game I started the Souls series on tells you I'm not doing this because of nostalgia. That's not the reason I'm doing it. Next, I would say, or you know, let me talk about why, because I've done it for all the others. The gameplay looks awesome. although it looks more so focused on pros, and I'm a pro, so I'm gonna rank it up this high because the movement looks awesome, level design looks awesome, NPCs look awesome, bosses look awesome. Everything about it looks awesome. I just haven't played it enough to know how big the game really is, because that was the major mistake I made with our next spot, Elden Ring. Y'all can probably guess what's first place by now, but let me explain myself. Now, obviously level design in Elden Ring, really good in some places, but for it being the first open world Souls game, there's a lot of emptiness in it, and I'm gonna get more into that later. But right now, I'm gonna talk about the bad things about Elden Ring. So, right off the bat, character creator. We need to talk. Dark Souls 1 character creator was an abomination maker, let's all admit that. Because the lighting of the game makes you look like you're smiling all the time. Everything's happy. It's fine. It's fine. But Dark Souls 2, there's no lighting, atmospheric lighting to make your character look like shit. Your character usually looks good, depending on where you are, because there are some areas with some lighting to make you look good. They're not your armor, the castle, you know what I mean. Dark Souls 3, the shading, kind of did it in a little bit. Bloodborne, its character creator isn't the best, but I mean, I can't really show you guys because there's blood on my face, but you can at least make semi-realistic people in Bloodborne. In Demon Souls, it's honestly pretty solid for how old it is. Now, compare Elden Rings to, say, an older game. Demon Souls Remake, Neo, what was that other one? It probably doesn't matter. But Neo and Demon Souls Remake have a better character creator than Elden Ring. And Elden Ring is a newer game than both of those games. Not Neo 2, so I'm going to exclude Neo. But from another From Software game, now I know Bluepoint did this, but if Bluepoint can do a better job making a character creator for a game that you made, I would feel ashamed. Now, would I sit there and hate them for it? No, not at all. In fact, I might hire them to work on my next game, which is exactly what From Software didn't do. And now this is another problem with From Software. Now, I'm not sure why, but Bloodborne was thrown into 2016's Game of the Year because they waited for the DLC to sit there and enter it. Now, let me ask you something. Which do you think is better? Bloodborne and its DLC, or The Witcher 3? I think maybe The Witcher 3 might be a higher tier game than Bloodborne. And Bloodborne here is my #1 spot on this list because of what it does and what it does excellently. But Witcher 3 isn't on this list because this is a Souls list. But you threw Bloodborne into 2016 knowing full well how the base game was. I would have thrown it into 2015, thrown Dark Souls 3 into 20... I don't remember how early Dark Souls 3 came out, but I'm not sure if it came out too late to be registered, or if they just waited for the DLC like they did with Bloodborne. If that's the case, then From Software, what are you doing? Both two games that are excellent didn't make it to Game of the Year because you waited an extra year because your DLC fetish. I'd say in quotations. I'm really glad you didn't do that to Elden Ring. 2025. Oh, look. Elden Ring didn't get Game of the Year because guess what? The dumbasses over at FromSoft decided to enter it too late. Unless you're actually going to make the DLC that much mind-blowing. Because if you make it mind-blowing, then maybe it can still work like that. But I'm glad you entered Elden Ring when you did, and didn't decide to be a bunch of dumbasses like you did with Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. But anyway, back to the list. I'm done talking about that because, yeah, you guys know what you did. Anyway, these are bothering me. The lighting on them is off. Elden Ring. Visually, it is a lot better than every other game on this list besides Demon's Souls Remake. And matter of fact, Bloodborne isn't my number one. I forgot I was adding in Demon's Souls Remake to this. Demon's Souls Remake is probably my number one spot. But Elden Ring is my third spot because it's better than all the rest that I stated before. Yes, including Dark Souls 3. I don't want to hear anyone say Dark Souls 3 is better than Elden Ring. I will eat you. Anyway, that was a joke. Calm down. You can like Dark Souls 3 more than Elden Ring, just don't sit there and make an article about it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to read it. Fuck off. And don't you dare sit there and put Dark Souls 1 as far up as that guy did. Which they put it above Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro. Dark Souls 1. Yeah. No. Anyway. Now, Elden Ring has a lot of problems. A lot of which I thought weren't going to even exist. Because when I have a game that I'm really anticipated for, my imagination goes fucking haywire. And when I saw the Demon's Souls remake a year or two ago, when I saw Elden Ring for the first time in, what was it, March? April? Was it later than that? When I first played the game? It was actually August or July, one of those 2 months, 2022. But regardless, when I played the game, I was disappointed. The animations are just Dark Souls copy-pasted, and then like yes, you did a wonderful job making them different. I liked that. But you also kept the same speed, and I don't like that. And you end the combo after 5 swings, which is fine. It's more balancing. But in a game where you can get one shot by goddamn anything, ask me why I need to end my combo early. Just ask me why I gotta wait for my character to be done with that 5th hit before I start swinging again. And there's no gun to cover my ass this time. So, Elden Ring combat is worse than Bloodborne's, probably Demon's Souls Remake. Because I know in Demon's Souls Remake they kept the same, like, frame data as the original's attacks, but they amped it up to make it look better. Or maybe they made it a little faster. I don't know. Again, I'd have to play it and then play the original, see the comparisons, and break it down from there. But I don't have Remake yet, because I don't even have a PS5 yet. The reason I say Elden Ring looks the best, graphically, is because I've seen how it looks on PS5, and it looks fucking amazing. Do I have a PS5 yet? No. When I get one, I hope to get the PS5 version of Elden Ring, and bask in its full glory. But we have less healing. It's not as high upgraded. I'm sure it can heal more HP, but that's to compensate for the amount of HP we got from Elden Ring. Unlike Dark Souls 3, which maxed it out at 15 uses at plus 5 or 10 or 11, I forget. But in both games, I even have the thing that boosts your healing from flasks and Estus. And I still can't get to full health in a single drink from halfway. From halfway. Bloodborne, it doesn't matter how much health you have. 40%. Boom, 40%. You don't need an item to give you more heals, because there are better blood vials in here that you can only hold one of, which I have a problem with that on my own. But there's also an Executioner rune that can increase your heals by slightly. I think it's like 45% or 50% total now with that rune on. But again, why do I need to go out of my way to upgrade something that takes forever to get the upgrade materials for, just to match my health bar? And even then, at maximum, it's useless. I would rather use a regen spell than my flasks. I've actually used a regen spell over my flasks. I've used Great Heal over my flasks in Elden Ring because I feel like it's too slow, and you can't even roll out of it to ensure that you don't get hit mid-heal. You can roll out of a fucking spell. And also, let me get this straight. The only reason I don't like the healing in Elden Ring is because A, there's less of it, and B, it can't get as high as Dark Souls 3's in terms of plus value. If we just had a higher plus value flask, I wouldn't be complaining right now, because it would heal enough of my health for me to feel like I only need to heal once to get my health up to where I'm not getting my ass handed to me. Because taking in 2 flasks takes way longer than 1. And while you're ending that second flask, your character's got to sit there and put it away like there's no danger, you're going to get bitch slapped. And then you're going to have to back up and heal again, wasting another flask. This is why I try to find regen or HP drain or something, because it keeps me in the action. I don't have to retreat to heal. In Bloodborne, I don't have a fucking problem with it, because I can back up, parry their ass, heal, and then fucking parry their ass again, gut them, and boom, because you can parry at range. Parry times in Elden Ring? Ass. You'd think they would have improved the parry timing, but no. They did not. They had to rely on the fact that PS5 has a better controller to get you better parry timings on it, because it's a better response. But get this, there are less frames in an Elden Ring parry than there are in a Dark Souls parry, or even a Demon Souls parry. I am far better at parrying in these games: Bloodborne, Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3. And I hate to say this, but I parry better in Lies of P than I do in Elden Ring. And parrying's a little different there. Now, if there's no parrying in that, then I'm thinking of another game. But guess what other game I can parry better in than Elden Ring? Nioh. Just let that sink in for a second. A game where you don't even have a shield, you could parry better than a game that has a buckler. And not to mention, in Elden Ring, there's not that much of a difference between the buckler and the medium shield versus Dark Souls, where the buckler timing is a lot better than the medium shield. But I still find the medium shield to be better because it can block more, and you can parry with it as well. Which is why I usually don't use light shields, because I want to be able to use a shield as a shield and not as a tool. Meanwhile, Bloodborne punishes you for using a shield because you're not supposed to be using a shield because it's Bloodborne. But another problem I have with Bloodborne, or Elden Ring, we're not in Bloodborne yet. Another problem I have with Elden Ring is Great Runes. Now, I don't mind having to get them every time I start a new Game Plus, because it's on me for starting the next New Game Plus. But, I mean, it would be nice to be able to use Malenia's Great Rune on Godric without having to go fight Malenia again. Or Margit, or Malekith. I mean, you could probably use it on Malekith in the first playthrough if you just go to the Halig tree first. But, regardless, I don't want to have to go to the Halig tree again to use a Great Rune that's ass. There are three Great Runes in Elden Ring that actually do their job well. Godric's, Radahn's, and Morgott's. Rykard's is just another Taker's Camo with the same exact amount. Malenia's is a worse Bloodborne rally mechanic because it goes down way too quickly. I mean, I guess Renala's is good too, because you don't need to even have it equipped, and you've unlocked Rebirth, which Rebirth is amazing. You can do it as many times as possible. Not Dark Souls 3's dumbass over there limiting you for some reason, even though you can just farm tongues off of the Dark Wraiths. But whatever. I mean, the drop rate's already punishment enough. Why do I have to go to New Game Plus to fucking do the thing? But I swear I'm done talking about Dark Souls 3. There's so much wrong with that game. Anyway, another problem I have with Elden Ring. Weapons that don't have a unique moveset whenever you use them. Stuff like the Banished Knight's Greatsword, the Claymore. Well, I guess the Claymore is unique from the Bastard Sword, but like the fucking Malekith swords, the Blasphemous Blade, etc. I could go on to how many weapons don't have a unique moveset. And I'm not talking about weapon art, because weapon arts don't matter when it's just one move that changes the moveset. They're cool, don't get me wrong, they're cool. But why can't we have more weapons accurate to how the bosses use them? Why do we have to use them like some guy that didn't defeat the boss? They just fucking felled. Cause we can use Hand of Malenia, we can use Waterfell Dance. Why can't we swing the goddamn sword like Malenia? We can use Radahn's great swords, but why do we have to use it like we're dual-wielding great swords? Why can't we use it like Radahn, one after the other, and then, like, again, Elden Ring didn't do boss weapons better than the previous games in its series, but what it did do better was you're able to jump now. That's not the only thing, obviously. Bosses are better. Level design, like Stormveil, the Academy, Landvale, sewers. I mean, yes, it's okay, but it's a sewer. What the fuck do you want out of it? It's a sewer. Catacombs are okay. Kind of wish they were a little bigger and had more stuff in them. There are a lot of good catacombs, and the heroes' graves are really good. But why can't we get more quality over quantity? Like, yes, I get you might have had an off day that day, but why do we have to suffer because you did? And then, like, you've got bosses like Plasuta Sax, Malekith, Malenia, Godfrey, etc. Then you have bosses like, I don't know, the Watchdog, the Burial Watchdog, the two Burial Watchdogs, the Watchdog with the imps that are more of a threat than the actual Watchdog. Like, even the Erdtree avatars I don't mind. The only ones I hate are the Putrid ones, because it's not the rat that kills you, it's the big AoE constant damage that kills you because it just does stupid amounts of damage. If somebody doesn't know how scaling works properly in certain moves. And then, even those, what are they, Ulcerated spirits? The tree spirits, the big wormy dudes that are all wood. Even those guys I don't mind fighting, because at least you can tell what they're about to do if you've fought them enough times. It's the bosses like Burial Watchdogs and the fucking normal-ass enemies like the Abductor version. Like, get those out of here. Burial Watchdogs are fine. Just don't put them in the actual catacomb like I've seen you do a couple times. There was one boss that was an electric Burial Watchdog that didn't shoot out electricity out of its mouth. And there was water at the bottom. So, A, you could have made that a bigger threat. B, I guess if we were using like lightning incantations, like lightning stake or whatever, it would do more damage to him, but he's lightning, so he's more resistant to lightning, so what's the point? Black Knives are pretty fun. Like I could go on with how many bosses are good and bad. Fire Giant, atrocious, but he does have a good moveset. It's just the fact he doesn't stop rolling in an arena where you have to sprint to catch up to him, because if you summon anybody, you don't have access to Torrent. Elden Beast is another example of that I don't like doing. Dragons are dragons. I mean, they fly, it's what they do. But do they have to go to the other side of the lake I'm fighting them at? I've even had one fly off of the bridge while I'm fighting him, for fuck's sake, before they patched that and put barriers there for him. Like, I see a lot of potential in Elden Ring, with both the bosses, area design, etc., but they could have done a lot better at it. But with the Legacy Dungeons and Radahn's Festival, I wish we had a lot more of that, and I hope the DLC has more to offer than just, oh look, more shitty areas, have fun! Because I don't want another Dark Souls 3 where the level does, like, the area design is great, but there's so many enemies, you're not focusing on sightseeing, you're focusing on staying the fuck alive, because they're just throwing shit at you. This is the same problem I had with Scholar the First Sin. I hope Elden Ring doesn't do that. Because Bloodborne was good. It had a good pacing. There were a couple areas where there's a little too many enemies, like the Blood River. But other than that, it was fine. And I guess the patient area, the research lab or whatever, that place, too many enemies packed in tight places. But again, I don't think they're gonna do that, but from history, I can see that they're gonna do that. But let's hope Elden Ring actually gets bumped up to being above Bloodborne with its DLC, because I want Elden Ring to be good. I really do. There's a lot of potential it has, and the hype it had when it first came out was amazing, but they didn't execute it properly, and it, like, the fact Demon's Souls Remake did come out, and people saw how well next gen looked, and then FromSoft built the game on PS4 with PS5 graphics, I just... disappointing. Like, I want a next gen game released after another next gen game to be next gen. I don't want Dark Souls 4 the open world. Like, come on. Because all Elden Ring is, it's the previous Souls game taken, upgraded, a lot given, but then you still have the Dark Souls in there. It's not original enough to be Elden Ring. It still feels like Dark Souls, which is why a lot of the people that play it do the exact same things they did in Dark Souls, because it's the same. Down to the core, it's the same. You may change the movesets, you may change what you're able to do with Ashes of War. At the end of the day, they're still Ashes of War. At the end of the day, they're the same weapons. At the end of the day, you're still making shit that's usually 2 or 4 pounds, 20 and 40 pounds. the end of the day, there's still equipment weight, and you still can't upgrade your armor. At the end of the day, you could still kill NPCs, which that's fine. That's a From Software thing. What I'm talking about is while you're helping them, you can still kill them on accident, which you can do in Bloodborne too. But that's From Software again. But could we please stop with the fucking NPCs that are just like, oh hey, you have to do this specific thing to this other NPC to keep me from killing them, because if you don't, then I'm just gonna kill them. Like Yurt, the Silent Chief from Demon's Souls. What's his face who drops the Ring of Favor in Dark Souls 1? I'm glad there's nobody like that in Dark Souls 2. The Beggar in Bloodborne. I mean, fucking Dunginger from Elden Ring. Can we stop? The player is bad enough. Ugh. But at the end of the day, Elden Ring is third place because of what it brings to the table and how well done it was made. Like, I don't have it above Demon's Souls because of pity. I have it above Demon's Souls because it earned it. But I have Bloodborne above Elden Ring because it earned it. And again, it's not nostalgia because I put Elden Ring above Demon's Souls. I put Sekiro above Demon's Souls, and I haven't even played Sekiro yet. It's not about nostalgia. I'm being fair here. It's like Dark Souls 2 isn't last because some guy didn't register that it was a joke. And there are a lot of guys out there that don't know it's a joke, and they sit there and stand by it, and then when they're proven wrong, they just sit there and block the guy. In an aggressive manner. They don't actually block him, they just harass him. But anyway, Bloodborne. You're second place. Not because you trounce the competition, but because you show us how exactly a different game needs to be done. Elden Ring. But anyway, I'm done throwing shade at Elden Ring because Dark Souls 3, let's admit, is a lot worse. Dark Souls 1 is far worse, trust me. Not as bad as Code Vein, but still pretty bad. Again, I'm not ranking this off of lore, so please hold back on those comments about the lore. I know lore in Souls is probably the best thing Souls can do, besides like atmosphere, but let's be honest, Dark Souls is missing atmosphere. All three of them, specifically. Dark Souls 2 is good in atmosphere. Dark Souls 3 is okay. Dark Souls 1 is okay. Demon's Souls, fantastic. Bloodborne, fantastic. Elden Ring, fantastic. Minus the sirens in Limgrave, but other than that, fantastic. But Bloodborne, the combat is smooth. The hit stun doesn't last as long. You could parry at range. The rally system is amazing. It feels like its own game, and it feels like it's next gen when it's not actually next gen. Because Dark Souls 2 Scholar, Dark Souls 1 Remastered, Dark Souls 3, Dark Souls 3's DLCs are all, and Sekiro, are all on the same console. They're all on PS4. Sekiro is next gen PS4. Dark Souls 3 is another PS3 game with graphics of a PS4 game. Elden Ring is another PS4 game with graphics of a PS5 game. Demon's Souls Remake is next gen. Bloodborne is next gen. Sekiro is next gen. From the previous generation, sorry. Bloodborne is definitely not PS5 on this PS4. Demon's Souls is next gen remake, and it doesn't look like a PS2 game from the original, but it also doesn't look like a PS3 game. Again, it's a PS2 game with PS3 graphics. As much as I would like to look past that, I cannot, because that's what it is. Dark Souls 1 is a PS3 game, or PS2 game with PS3 graphics. I can tell because of how it plays. It plays very slowly. I can play the first Tomb Raider, and it feels smoother than Dark Souls 1. I am not joking. And the camera in Tomb Raider 1 is a lot worse. And I'm talking about the original. I'm not talking about what Square Enix did back in, what was it, 2015? Something like that. Those games are next gen. Whoops. But for the most part, Bloodborne really shows what the PS4 is capable of. It shows how From Software could do given enough time and budget. But what they didn't do in Elden Ring, they did in Bloodborne. They compacted the areas, they made them really nice, and Old Yarn is a very good example of this. You've got that guy up there, his hunter buddy down there. Behind him is the cathedral, and then you have this area that starts up and goes to this safe area where you can take cover from Mr. Machine Gun. You got Dark Beast Pearl that loops back into here, and you got the Unseen Village, which was only accessible from after killing a certain boss here in Old Yarn. Like, there's so much thought about in level design of Bloodborne. That's why it's higher than Elden Ring. Elden Ring does have that, but it's only in its legacy dungeons, and I wish it did that for the rest of the game. I want to find enemy outposts where you just got a lot of enemies all in formation and shit, and you just wipe them out. I want more stuff like that. I don't want big, vast, empty spaces where there's just enemies patrolling like it's fucking Elder Scrolls. Even in Elder Scrolls Online has better enemy placement than Elden Ring. It's got enemy outposts, it's got farms and shit. It's like, it's not all just disheveled castles or ruins and poison, water, lava, whatever. Like, it's not just copy paste from what the old Souls games did into an open world environment. Like, I want to see more of what Bloodborne did with its areas, what Elden Ring did with its legacy dungeons, what Demon Souls did with its game. I want to see more of that. That's the passion I'm talking about. That's why Elden Ring has so much potential, is because it could have been as great as Bloodborne's level design. But the open world parts of it, now the plains and stuff are fine. I mean, they could do with a bit more enemy outposts, like towers or something, but do they have that? No, they don't. Just a road, a carriage, some guys on a cliff somewhere looking out, and a bunch of enemies surrounding said carriage. And that's it. There's no towers guarding, like, a gate leading to the road where, like, Gatefront is a great area, but there's no enemies shooting at you from above the tower. There's no way into the tower from below. You have to go up and around to get up there. And even then, there's only like 2 guys and a fucking talisman. Like, there's so much wasted potential with Elden Ring that I feel like the other games did better. But once you get into those legacy dungeons, oh my god, does it feel satisfying to go through them. Haligtree, Stormvale, Liurnia's Academy on the Lake. I mean, come on. You have potential. There's so much there, and you're not capitalizing on it. Caelid feels like it has so much more character to it because of all those, all the ruins and shit, and the corpses of the giant skeletons leave a mystery about it, and enemies that are actually interacting with the environment instead of just walking a straight path when there's no path there, but they just walk because they're told to. Like, I don't want it to feel like a game. I want it to feel more like Elder Scrolls, Witcher 3, Bloodborne, your legacy dungeons. I mean, come on, Elden Ring. But where Elden Ring tripped up, Bloodborne delivered. And the fact that Bloodborne is a much older game is disappointing for Elden Ring. Because I mean, I get it had Japan Studio, it had funding. The fact that Elden Ring showed its legacy dungeons the way it did, it gives me hope for the future. And I really like having hope for the future. But I guess I gotta be more patient than 5 to 10 years. Like, I shouldn't have to wait for another collaboration to happen to get a good game out of From Software. But Bloodborne, the combat is awesome. It introduces Kael runes instead of just having rings like the other games. You have blood gems you can throw on your weapons, and it changes what they do. It lowers costs, it increases rally gotten, it does more damage, does bolt damage, fire damage on stuff that wouldn't normally be able to use fire paper. Like, the areas, it's got that perfect break, action, break, action, break, action. Not action, 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 break. Action, 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 break. Like, it's got a perfect pace. And the shortcuts all make sense, and you can get to the boss faster, and there's not like this one enemy that's there that just fucks you up. I'm almost done. I'm on Bloodborne, next is Demon's Souls Remake, and then I'm done. I went on a tangent about Elden Ring.
I know, it's only a 20-minute tangent.
I'm putting passion behind this. I'm not just like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, done. Like, no, I want to explain why. Not just be some article, I'm gonna write a couple paragraphs and fucking do this. Like, no. And, like, the way the night progresses, the more bosses you kill, just adds that extra layer of atmosphere. The Great One is not trying to kill you when you first discover them. You have to make the first attack. It makes it feel like they're a thing, not just this boss that you have to kill. Like the Daughter of the Cosmos in Bloodborne, you have to find and then you have to aggravate to even revive the Queen of Cainhurst, which is in a completely different area, but you need access to that altar, and to get access to that altar you need to kill the Daughter of the Cosmos, which, she's the only boss that, unless I do the Cainhurst questline, I usually avoid, not because the boss isn't good, but because they just feel like a being. It's not just another boss, you know? Celestial Emissary, and that's another boss. I mean, bosses like Gascoigne, Hunter gone insane and fighting you now. Like, the only time we ever got that in Dark Souls was Gale. And he's the final boss to the DLC, and he's just another boss because he's mandatory. You gotta fight him to beat the DLC. Gascoigne's the same way. But then you got bosses like Lady Maria, Gehrman. Like, the Hunter bosses in this game are done so well. They feel like you're fighting another Hunter. You're not just fighting some algorithm that tells itself to guard or attack or wait for stamina. Like with Elden Ring's Crucible Knights, those guys are really good. You know who's not really good? The Banished Knights. The guys that just have poise out the ass, they just shred your ass because they can. Like, give them a lot of attack, but make them easily broken out of that attack. Unless they're a boss, you know? Don't do Elden Ring. Or don't do what Elden Ring did. Don't do what Dark Souls did. Focus more on balance in your enemies, like Bloodborne and Demon's Souls. Because like with Demon's Souls, if you find an enemy that it's annoying because they hit a lot, find a heavier weapon, slam their fucking ass in with it, and boom, there you go. Sorry, like, that's another thing I hate about these controllers. The adaptive triggers are so easy to trigger, but it's whatever. I've dealt with it for as long as I have. Whatever. But the fact that you can parry at range gives so much more versatility to how you play the game. Because the ranged parry isn't about getting the visceral all the time. It's about giving yourself a window to do something. You can either full charge a heavy, smack him in the face. You can heal, you can reload your bullets like this. You can do so much more in Bloodborne than the other games. And not to mention, stamina costs are at an all-time low. And I like that, because you can do more in the combat with less stamina. Elden Ring doesn't do that, and it feels really empty. And then, like, we have our next spot here. I'm the Chalice Dungeons in Bloodborne. I could get into detail, but they kind of explain themselves. They're this optional thing you can do infinitely, by the way, which is a great idea for games like Elden Ring, Bloodborne, Dark Souls. Dark Souls doesn't do that. Elden Ring doesn't do that. Elden Ring has Colosseums, which don't even reward you for entering them. Bloodborne at least has Chalice Dungeons you can do after you've beaten the game, or during. Like, I could go on with how much stuff Bloodborne added that the other games don't have. But I need to move on. Now, with my the number one spot on my list, yes, it's another version of a game. Yes, it's done by someone else, but it's still a Souls game. And the Demon's Souls remake being on my number one spot, above even Bloodborne, yes I know, it's because of how much they put into it to make it that much more of a next-gen game. Like, yes, if I play it, it's gonna be the same stuff, but it has so much more emotion put into it that it elevates the game in a way where it feels like it's new, but it's not. And the fact that someone can do that to a game I've already played about 10 times already, and it still gets me excited, just, it explains itself. I was this hyped for Elden Ring, I was this hyped for Bloodborne, but I've seen what it looks like, and I'm not gonna be disappointed because I know what to expect. This Elden Ring, they were like, this thing's gonna be massive. I look at the map when I'm first collecting pieces, I'm like, oh shit, they're gonna make good on their promise. Once I got Altus Plateau, the map didn't grow from there. Like, it literally just stopped. Altus is the biggest place in the entirety of Elden Ring, besides the underground. Well, even the underground isn't as big. But, like, Altus Plateau is as big as it gets, and Mountaintops is two different sections of the mountaintops that don't connect at all. Which is fine, because it's a story thing, I guess. It's a, ooh, secret, ooh, great room, ooh, this, ooh, that, like, stop. Forget the secrets. I want good level design, then you can add the secrets. But Demon's Souls Remake not only has the same game, but the animations are spot on. The game has so much more atmosphere, and to hear that the controller vibrates with dragon's wings beating and the fire, and like, it gets me excited. And like how Demon's Souls looks on the PS5, it looks like more than just, oh, they're making a remake of it. Like the Final Fantasy VII remake, which, I mean, it took its own direction, it wasn't just a remake. But it's not just, oh, here we go again, kind of game. It's more like a, holy shit, something I love is actually getting attention. And it's getting good attention at that. Like, I want more of that. That's what I got when I was first fantasizing about Elden Ring and how good it was going to be. But it disappointed me. Because the open world parts of it feel empty. And the combat's just Dark Souls 4. Because if we look at Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, it's vastly different. Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3, however, kind of the same with some extra steps. Elden Ring is no different. It's Dark Souls 3 with extra steps. Demon's Souls Remake, however, it's the same moves, but because they changed the animation, it feels different. It looks different. But, like, I know what to expect with it, so which is why I have this explanation for it at the end. The level design from Demon's Souls, the NPCs in Demon Souls are already fantastic, but when you add everything that Bluepoint did, it just makes it, like, it amplifies what's already there. It's like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just, I can't wait to get it. And when I do get it, I'll get a better review on it than just, it's just better. But, like, that's what I think of when I think of a PS5 game. I think of Demon Souls Remake. I don't think of Elden Ring, because Elden Ring is just Dark Souls 4. Like, when I get into the Legacy Dungeons, it feels like its own game, and I love it. But the moment I'm done, it's over. Like, there goes that feeling. I'm not playing Elden Ring anymore when I'm not in those Legacy Dungeons. In Demon Souls and Bloodborne, I'm playing that game all the time. It doesn't feel like it changes, like, gone, there, gone, there. Like, it's not on and off like Elden Ring. It's not a switch that flips because some team did the open world and the other team did the legacy dungeons, or they were rushed for time because they were like, oh yeah, we'll have it done by that. Oh, we added a new region? Shit. Like, no. That's one thing I don't like about deadlines, is they really bite into someone's potential. But I'm gonna end this here because I rambled on long enough. But yeah, don't listen to cheap online fucking bullshit. Some guy that just felt like doing it and then just wrote 2 paragraphs of each and told why he feels like it needs to be there, but he also doesn't explain why he wants it to be there. Just don't listen to articles online. Most of them are bullshit. I wanted to make this video out of the bottom of my heart because I've played all these games and I deeply, truly love most of them. Except for Code Vein, that one can just go to the fucking Mount Gilmere and burn. But I love all these other games. Even Dark Souls 1, yes, it's shit. But I see the charm there. Is it better than Demon Souls? Fuck no. But I still like it. I might just put Dark Souls 1 above Dark Souls 2 Scholar, because Scholar just ruins it that much, but it's still kind of Dark Souls 2, but it's still Scholar, so fuck it. Code Vein, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 3, Demon Souls, Sekiro, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, Demon Souls Remake. There you go. That's my list. And if you have any problems with it, make your own, because I don't want to hear it. Now, arguments, sure. Yelling at me, go make your own fucking list. I'll see you guys in another video. Goodbye.